gentlemen, welcome to Stan the Wine Man TV. I'm your host, Stan Rattan, and this is the Blue Collar Wine Show, where I try to help you spend your wine dollars wisely. Welcome to Stan's Wine Bar. Now, we got a couple of interviews coming up pretty soon. I'm excited about that. Looking forward to, perhaps, I haven't sealed it down yet, interviewing Trey Bush out of Walla Walla, and then I know for sure next month in May I am going to have a live interview with David Baverstock from Esparero and Merces up in Portugal. So I'm very excited about that interview, especially doing it live at Vinny's restaurant. I will give you more details later about, you know, how that's going to transpire, and if you have an opportunity to come and be part of that. I'm really looking forward to doing that. Hopefully you watched my last episode in which I discussed a few white wines, maybe some different styles of white wine that you could take on picnics, have with your barbecue, whatever it is, and hopefully that was helpful for you. Now we're going to move on to some red wines that we could use for grilling, for picnics, for whatever during the summertime and the spring. Beautiful weather outside, so a lot of people are barbecuing now. And, you know, a lot of people think, well, it's the summertime, I need to go lighter. Not always the case. If you think about it, barbecued foods like barbecued spare ribs, steaks, those types of things, hamburgers, they require a little bit of a heftier wine to match up with them. So, you know, we don't necessarily go lighter reds in the summertime. When we're barbecuing and do all that thing, sometimes we want to look to wines that are a little more stout, that can stand up to those grilled meats that we're having. And sometimes we might go on a picnic and we might have some cheeses that are a little bit stronger, need a little bit of a stronger red. So let's get started right away. The first one I'm going to do is the 2012 Oak Grove Petite Sirah, which rolls in at $8. Petite Sirah is related to Syrah. Syrah is a parent of Petite Sirah. Originated out of an area really close to the Rhone Valley. Actually, it could also be called Durif. It is a cross between Syrah and Plowerson, and so there's a relation, although they're in a lot of ways different in flavor profile. But I have had some Petite Sirahs that get a little bit on the smoky side. So this rolls in at $8. I'm a big fan of the Oak Grove label. I think it's one of those labels that people overlook because it's inexpensive. It's usually on the bottom shelf. And, you know, a lot of wine drinkers that want something a little more serious might go up a few shelves. But I found that Oak Grove is a really good value wine. I've always thought it to be a very nice wine for the money. Let's see what we get on the nose. Getting a lot of blueberry, a little bit of like a red plum coming through. And some cherry notes. Nice nose. I like this wine a lot. Let's see what we get on the palate. The plum and cherry notes come through really nicely. What I like about Oak Grove is it doesn't have a fakiness to it. And what I mean, a lot of wines that are inexpensive, sometimes you get qualities about them, almost like it has some makeup, like they did certain things to the wine to get it to taste a certain way. I don't know what Oak Grove's practices are as far as winemaking, but they do an excellent job. This has good acidity, which I like a lot, and that acid that you get is definitely complementary towards food. Whenever you're looking at a food wine, what would go good with grilled steaks, with hamburgers, with hot dogs, what would go good with ribs, you want a little bit of acid. Now this isn't high acid wine, but it pops the plum and blueberry notes through, and I'm getting a little bit of cherry on the back end and a touch of tobacco. Really soft tannins, a little gritty on the backside, which is kind of interesting, which tells you that this is going to be a good food wine. Again, I would highly recommend this looking for Oak Grove labels, whether it's Syrah, Petite Sirah, they do a Cab, they do a Merlot, They do a Chardonnay, they do a Pinot Grigio, which I do not carry at the store, as you know, not huge on Pinot Grigio. But that being said, Oak Grove is a great label if you want a nice wine that delivers for $8, especially if you're having a lot of company over and you know, you don't want to spend a ton of money. This is a crowd pleaser. Like I said, soft tannins, but good acid, good fruit. I'm going to go B- on this wine. I think for the money, it's really good. Let's move on to the next one. We're kind of jumping all over the place on this one, which I like to do on these programs. Give you a little bit of variety in the show. Paso O Paso, Tempranillo, estate bottled. This is from, it's 100% Tempranillo, 2013. It's from Vino della Terra di Castilla, which is really close to Jumilla, which is kind of south, a little east of Madrid. This rolls in at $10. Now, some people have called Tempranillo the Spanish Pinot Noir, but when you get into this hotter climate, it definitely ramps it up a little bit. So I'm kind of mixed feelings about that. I find that some Tempranillos tend to be a little bit heavier than Pinot Noir. Boy, the color on this is amazing. Petite Sirah is known for its color, but boy, this has got some incredible color. I wish I could show it to you. Let me zoom up on it real quick. I'm really impressed with the color on this one. Can you kind of get that against this little light purple shirt that I'm wearing? Dangerous. Danger Will Rogers wearing a light shirt wine tasting. Kind of brave. Let's see what we get on the nose. Boy, a lot deeper fruit. Getting a lot of currants on this, a little bit of crushed rock. Hints of tobacco. A little bit of vanilla coming through too on the palate. On the nose, sorry. A little bit of black plum notes coming through too. I get a little bit of heat on the nose, a little bit of a nose burn. Just curious if I can spot the alcohol right away. I hate to make, oh yeah, 14%. So not terrible, really. Let's see what we get on the palate. That's what I love about jumping into old world wines right off the bat, is you immediately get that minerality that comes through. Even though there's a lot of fruit on this wine, there's a load of currants, a lot of violets, which is really interesting, very tasty. I get those violets, get that crushed rock, I get the currants coming through. A little bit of, just a hint of cranberry action on this wine. The tobacco notes come through big time. It has a plushness to it, but that is restrained by this minerality that kind of lingers underneath. Very grippy, almost like a sandpaper element coming through on the back end. But that's without food. This is definitely a food wine. It has good acid also, comes through right at the end. You get mostly that acid. I like the minerality. This is a nice transition wine. If you, of course, Spanish is old world, and if you are kind of a new world person, you know, you like Washington wines, you like Oregon wines, you like Cali wines, Argentina, Chile, you like those style wines, Australia, you may go to an example like this, the Paso O Paso for $10, and really understand some of that minerality without getting too carried away. You know, you're not getting that stinky, funky kind of Bordeaux thing going on, that earthy, mushroomy thing. This has the fruit with that minerality. I think it's a nice transition wine. But getting back to barbecuing, this would be fantastic with barbecue sauce, with chicken, barbecued chicken, with spare ribs, with steak for sure, with hamburgers, hot dogs, all that. This would be a great wine for that, and it's only $10. So this Paso O Paso Tempranillo is awesome wine for the money. And when you're drinking this wine, think of the violets. The violets come through big time, front to back. They just kind of carry the wine all the way through. Really like this wine. $10. $10. That's a stupid price. Jorge Ordonez, he's known for making wines kind of, you know, for the New World palate. This does not get over the top. I think it's nicely restrained on the palate, good acid. Again, I've had some viewer, well, I actually got an email from one of my wine club members that said, could you talk about aging wines? This one will age. It has enough structure and balance. I would say you can age this for 5 years. It'd be fun to try that, put it away. I think I'm going to put a couple bottles away for 3 to 5 years, see how it does. It's got enough structure to do that, and it's only $10, which is pretty amazing. I'm going to go B plus on this wine. I think it's excellent for the money. Great barbecue wine, by the way. Let's move on to the next one. Now we're going into Washington State. So we did a little Cali, a little Spanish. Now we're going into Washington State. And remember, the theme of this, there is a theme, barbecue wines. So one of the few producers in Washington State that does Zinfandel, Maryhill, 2010. Proprietors Reserve Zinfandel. This rolls in at $30 US. This is their reserve line. They've got a lot of medals for their Zinfandel, their standard Zin. And I'm curious about this because it's a 2010. And contrary to what a lot of people think, Zinfandel will age. It's not one of those wines you can lay down for 20 to 30 years, but it will age. And I'm very curious, very excited about this. And we talked about heavier wines not being good for the summertime, but when you're doing some serious barbecuing, and even hamburgers with all that stuff on it, Zinfandel works very well. And you know, I'm not saying sit around in the hot sun and quaff down a 15.8 alcohol wine, but you know, it's no different than sitting out on the deck with your gin and tonic. I mean, how hot is a gin and tonic? It's got alcohol in it. So, just say it. Don't let the stereotypical don't do heavy reds in the summertime stick with you. It's all up to you, of course. You can do whatever you want, but you know, don't let other people influence you. You can't have a Zin in the summertime. It's way too hot. Blah blah blah. And that's not true. Let's see what we get on the nose. I'm curious about this because it's got like a little bit of a Worcestershire sauce, tobacco, lots of blackberries. The tobacco elements, almost like a bark note coming through too. I'm really curious how this is going to taste. The nose is very interesting, almost like a lot of earthy elements coming through versus fruit. I am getting the blackberry, I'm getting a little bit of currant. But very savory on the nose. Let's see what we get on the palate. There are some of you that are going to love this wine. It is a, for lack of better words, it's hedonistic. It's very much a fruit bomb of a Zinfandel. It might be on the other side of its peak at 2010. It is 5 years old. I know it's a reserve. I know Zinfandels don't necessarily age. You know, 5 years is pushing it with the Zinfandel. This seems like it's getting a little bit ripe. It may be riper than it was when it originally was made. Very, very, very ripe. Almost like you dumped a little bit of sugar on a bowl of ripe blackberries and currants. Getting a little bit of white pepper action coming through. Those bark notes come through. Definitely get the tobacco on the back end of the, but it's very, very fruit forward. A very, very what I'd call sweet on the palate. A lot of fruit, a lot of ripe fruit. A lot of wine snob type people might not like this wine because they think it's too hot. It is a little bit hot. And I don't mean, I'm not stereotyping you as wine snobs, but I know there's a lot of wine snobs out there that will not drink Zinfandel. But for those of you who have a little bit of a sweet tooth, you like jelly beans, I got a sweet tooth, you like chocolate cake, this is a great wine. I would love to have this with chocolate. This would be great with chocolate cake or a piece of chocolate. For those of you that like a sweeter fruit forward wine, what does it say on the back here? It's 85% Gunkel Vineyards, 7% Alder Ridge, and 8% Milbrandt. Aged 20 months in 60% New Oak, 10% American, and 5% European, and 45% French. Only 950 cases produced. Now, I'm thinking that this wine might have been better three years ago, or 2 years ago. But, that being said, I think there's a lot of you out there that's going to like this wine. It is definitely a Zin, but a lot of real big Zinfandel lovers like it. It's $30, a little bit on the expensive side. I'm not even going to grade this wine. It's a 2010. I'm not sure where they're out on release on this wine. Well, I will. For $30, this is a C+, B- Zinfandel. I think it comes across characteristically as a lot of like Lodi Zins might come across. In that sense, it's very well made. But I think it might be a little bit over the top because it's the 2010. If this is a vintage they're on right now, I'm going to go C+, B-. If they're in a different vintage right now, I'd like to try that one to see where they're at. But that being said, that would be a great wine because of the like a lot of people like to put brown sugar with their barbecue sauce. That would match up nicely with this Zinfandel. It really would. And if you want to do something a little special, you're spoiling yourself, you're having a barbecue by yourself, just you and your wife, you and your significant other, whoever it is, and you want to impress them with a wine, this might do it. C+, B-. Thanks for watching. And remember, wine is not a mystery. It is just fermented. It is just fermented grape juice. Drink it. Enjoy it. Always be willing to expand your palate. Try new things, but never, ever let anybody tell you what you should or shouldn't like. If we do that together, we can take the snob out of wine.